Well, welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Nishi, a physician specializing in integrative psychiatry and sleep medicine. Before we jump in, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this channel, which is all about sleep and mental health. Healthcare practitioners can also receive CME credits for watching these videos. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague, Dr. Ashwin Varghese. We'll be talking about the impact of the soil and micronutrients on sleep and mental health. We'll also be discussing the Save Soil movement. Dr. Ashwin is a practicing psychiatrist. He has a personal practice of meditation, classical yoga, and Ayurveda, and a professional interest in mindfulness. Within the past year, his team published a study examining mindfulness and self-compassion in people diagnosed with a psychotic disorder, and a second study exploring mindfulness as a strategy to enhance resilience in mental health care professionals, including psychiatrists. He currently lives and works in Melbourne, Australia. Now, our paths first crossed when we were in medical school in Ireland, so it's wonderful to reconnect after so many years, especially as we share an interest in yoga and meditation. So welcome, Ashwin.
Thank you, Nishi. Thank you for having me on the podcast. Very happy to be here.
Yes, I'm delighted to have you. And I would love to hear a bit more about your interest in mental health and psychiatry and how that has evolved over time.
So Nishi had mentioned a few of those items already in the bio, but I developed an interest in mental illness and psychiatry quite early in my academic career. Prior to attending medical school, I was a researcher in the field of Psycho-Neuro-Immunology. And in grad school, I explored the relationship between early life trauma and later development of immunological disorders, as well as psychopathology using animal models. And then, I went off to medical school where you and I met. And after medical school, it was natural for me to train in psychiatry. And, basically as early as grad school, I noticed the level of stress I was under due to the busy academic career that I was having. And so that's when I first learned about meditation and I started meditating. And since then, those contemplative practices have really evolved and they've become a part of my life. And they've also become a part of my professional life, as you mentioned. I'd like to just add that in the study where we explored mindfulness as a strategy to enhance resilience in mental health care professionals, there's a qualitative component. And in that, it's a rare peek into the inner lives of people who work in the mental health field, if people are interested in reading it. And as you mentioned, currently I'm living and working in Melbourne, Australia, and I work in the public system where I do general adult psychiatry.
Wonderful. And, we were sort of chatting before this video about our own experiences with yoga and mindfulness and reducing burnout, enhancing resilience. And it's just interesting to see some of the parallels with our paths. Since we left medical school, we both entered psychiatry and we both became really interested in our own practice of yoga and meditation. And I think we also share a passion for integrative health and the environment. And so that leads to sort of touching upon the Save Soil movement and Conscious Planet. Mm-hmm. So can you share, what the Save Soil movement is all about and why it's so vital at this point in time?
Yeah. And I have to say, as you mentioned, I do have an interest in integrative health. And for integrative health, we have to have healthy soils. And this sort of is particularly relevant to me because I have a 7-year-old son and I want to leave him with a planet and with an environment that's going to sustain him for generations that follow. About half an hour before we started our podcast, I was having a little snack, and so I started reflecting on how I relate to food, and I realized that most of the time I kind of take the food for granted. I'm pretty unconscious, but interestingly, the food of today is 90% less nutritious than the food from the beginning of the 20th century or from the beginning of the 1900s. The United Nations, research conducted by them predicts that by the years 2040 to 2045, there will be 40% less food available for the growing global population, which is predicted to hit 9.4 billion people by that time. This is happening because our soil is degrading rapidly. 27,000 species of microorganisms that are based in soil are going extinct every year. Further research predicts that there are about 80 to 100 harvests left globally. So that's just another 45 to 60 years of farming that we have left on the planet. So we're really facing soil extinction. And the consequences of that can be dire. It can be relentless civil wars, ongoing famines, and mass migrations of people, forced migrations of people throughout the world. And the solution to this problem is to regenerate our soils to ensure that there is at least 3 to 6% organic content in our soil so that we can grow nutritious food. If we look at the farming lands throughout the world at the moment, in 60% of those lands, there is less than 1% organic content at present. If we take steps now to regenerate soil, we will see results in 25 to 30 years. But if we don't act now and we wait another 25 to 30 years, it may take anywhere from 150 to 200 years to restore soil fertility to be able to grow nutritious food. So we're at a cusp, a pivotal moment in our history where we have to act and do something. In terms of action, the only way to prevent soil extinction is for soil regeneration to be enshrined in government policies globally in every single country. And for that to happen, we, the citizens, have to let our governments know that soil health is important to us. To initiate that citizen voice and action, Sadhguru, who is a 65-year-old yogi, mystic, and visionary, is on a solo motorbike journey of 30,000 kilometers for 100 days, going across 24 to 27 nations. And the journey started in London on the 21st of March of this year, and it has traversed the European continent. It's gone across Eurasia. Right now, it's in the Middle East. It'll move on to India, and it'll culminate in southern India in late June of this year. And during his journey, Sadhguru has been meeting with citizens, with influencers, with scientists, with prime ministers of nations, and with ministers for the environment to raise awareness and also to garner support for soil regeneration. So that's the basic sort of outline of where the movement is at present.
Some very astounding statistics that our food is 90% less nutritious than it was about 100 years ago, that in 20 years our soil could completely go extinct, which has a massive impact on many different aspects of the environment and our health. I was also reading that more than 50% of the topsoil in the United States has already been lost. So these are very drastic, issues, probably the most pressing environmental issue of our time. And so tying this back to, mental health and sleep, we're both psychiatrists, and so we work with patients, and we're very interested in the brain and the mind and how the nutrition affects our mood and so forth. So how does the quality of the soil specifically affect food quality and even further micronutrients in our food?
Yeah. Soil is made up of organic material in addition to particles of rocks, of minerals, of liquids and gases. And one of the most important components of soil are the thousands of species of microorganisms that live in the soil. Those microorganisms convert the organic matter into a nutrient form that the plants can use for their growth and development. The relationship between those microorganisms and soil has been disrupted by our modern farming practices and our land management practices over the last 50 to 100 years. Basically, that's left the soil with a poverty of nutrients that plants need to grow. If we look at the US specifically, between the 1930s and the year 2000, in all food grown in the US, there's been a reduction in all micronutrients except for phosphorus. Now, the danger is that soil degradation can actually aggravate climate change, and climate change can in turn exacerbate and speed up soil degradation, setting up a toxic feedback loop.
So it becomes a sort of vicious cycle. And and just to clarify further for anyone listening who's not familiar with this term micronutrients, And when we refer to that, we're referring to things like iron and magnesium, zinc, molybdenum, selenium, phosphorus, and so forth. And these micronutrients are of particular relevance to the brain and to mental health and to sleep. So could you share a little bit more about how the quality of soil affects these micronutrients and then what impact that has on our mental health?
So I'd like to start by stating that I'm not an expert in nutritional medicine or nutritional mental health, but I have a basic understanding, and I'll share that today. And I'll start with defining macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients are those nutrients that the human body requires in large quantities, such as carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Micronutrients are nutrients that the body requires in much smaller quantities. And these include, as you mentioned, vitamins, minerals such as calcium, magnesium, phosphate, phytochemicals, and antioxidants. These micronutrients are crucial for basic physiological functions in the human body, including metabolism, growth, and development. When someone's diet habitually contains foods that lack these essential micronutrients, then deficiencies happen in the human body, leading to both mental and physical disorders. Next, I'll give examples of how micronutrients impact mental health and sleep. For example, low levels of magnesium intake, and magnesium present in various foods, from greens to whole grains, and B vitamins, especially folate and vitamin B12, have been associated with depression. And phytonutrients are natural compounds produced by plants, which give them their color, taste, and smell. And they confer both mental and physical benefits for the humans who consume them. For example, curcumin is an ingredient found in turmeric, and that may be beneficial for both anxiety and depression. Acute and chronic psychological stress is associated with increased inflammation in the body, which contributes to worsening of mental health symptoms, and it can also provoke mental health symptoms in otherwise healthy people. Dietary phytonutrients and antioxidants have anti-inflammatory properties. And carotenoids, for example, which are organic pigments found in various vegetables, can lower stress levels, and they can improve both emotional and physical health. Other antioxidants, such as vitamins A, C, D, E, and K, may also play a role in the development and alleviation of anxiety and depressive symptoms. Research has also shown that omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids are protective against depression and may improve sleep. Now, in terms of omega-3 fatty acids, there are three types. Two of the types come from marine sources, but the ALA, or the alpha-linoleic acid, comes from seeds and nuts and so on. And so soil quality would profoundly impact the quality that we get from them. Speaking of sleep specifically, one large study found that the lack of key nutrients such as calcium, magnesium, and vitamins, A, C, D, E, and K, can be associated with sleep problems, and perhaps sleep disorders. On the other hand, a nutrient-dense diet made up of foods full of vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, and antioxidants can be a powerful tool in promoting mental wellness and combating chronic disease. So as I mentioned, I'm not an expert. That was just my basic understanding. If there's something you can add to that, I mean, please do, because I can learn from that too.
Absolutely. No, I think you sort of, explain the far-reaching impacts of these micronutrients on sleep health and mental health. And I'll just add to that I see this a lot anecdotally in my practice, where people are eating a quote unquote healthy diet. They're eating lots of fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and all the things that they're supposed to be eating and that we should be eating that are very, supportive for health in many ways, but they're still deficient in these micronutrients. And so I do incorporate testing in my practice as well. So we're testing people for, vitamin D and B12 and iron levels and so forth. One thing I'd like to emphasize to people is that these micronutrients are also essential sometimes for the synthesis of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine and GABA and so forth. And these neurotransmitters have an impact on our mood and mental health, our focus, and our sleep as well. And so if we're deficient in these micronutrients, it has downstream effects on the body and on these other systems. And so like I was saying, if people are eating a healthy diet, they still might not be getting enough of what they need from these foods because of micronutrient depletion in the soil. And tying back to what we were saying earlier, that, healthy food, fruits, vegetables, plant-based foods are not as nutrient dense as they were 100 years ago because of soil degradation. So that's why, as healthcare practitioners, this is such an important topic because it's affecting our patients' health and our health as well as practitioners. So I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on what healthcare practitioners should know about the Save Soil movement.
Yeah, I think you beautifully sort of summed up kind of the impact lack of nutrient density can insidiously have on human beings, whether we're sitting at the practitioner end of the desk or the client end of the desk. I'd like to add that the World Health Organization has weighed in on this, and they've endorsed the Save Soil movement. And I will quote Dr. Nayako Yamamoto, who is the Assistant Director General of one of the branches of the WHO. Our current food systems are a major driver of ill health. That is why we unite behind the shared vision of transformative action to reshape our food systems to safely nourish all people for health and well-being.
Beautiful. Yes. And so how can people learn more about this movement and how can they get involved?
So what each and every one of us can do to be involved in this movement is to sign up to be an Earth Buddy on savesoil.org. And being an Earth Buddy is very simple. All it involves is spending 10 minutes a day to say something about soil directly to family and friends, or to post something on social media. And the idea is to do this for the next 55 days. The preferred platform for the social media activity is Twitter, because interestingly, 85% of world leaders are on Twitter, and they look at the content that's being generated by people on Twitter to determine what's important to their constituency, and that influences their policy decision-making. And so if you're wondering what content can you sort of speak about, the savesoil.org website has a tremendous amount of scientific research in the field of soil science, as well as other related fields, that has been distilled down into talking points. So you can use that. Or you can do your own research and post that content. Or if you know nothing about soil and you just don't have the time to learn more about soil, just tweet the words Save Soil for the next 55 days, because that'll make a difference in terms of the algorithms that politicians use to gauge what the public are interested in. And to do that for the next 55 days to reach a critical mass. And I'd like to also give an update on where the citizen action has taken us already. We've had quite a bit of success. To date, 7 Caribbean nations, Azerbaijan, Romania, the 4 per 1,000 initiative launched by France, and the World Food Programme in India have signed the Memoranda of Understanding with the Save Soil movement to institute soil regenerative policies. So that's already happened. The 54 Commonwealth nations, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Bulgaria, Italy, Germany, and the European Union have pledged their support for soil regeneration. A number of global organizations are also involved. The UN Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD, has become a formal partner of the Save Soil movement because of the importance that this movement is now generating. And a number of other organizations are also expressing their support. These include the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, as well as the Vatican, have all expressed their support for the movement. Well, we have a long way to go, and I think people speaking about it on social media with their family and friends will help push the momentum forward.
Yeah, it's just amazing to see how this movement is growing, and also incredible to see Sadhguru, driving his motorcycle all the way from London to India. I mean, in support of Save Soil. This is such an important movement. And so for anyone listening, please go and see, how you can help. Go and learn about Save Soil, learn about the importance of soil. This is important to anybody who eats food. So I encourage everybody to learn more, and especially if you're a healthcare practitioner, because this, as we were saying, does have a direct impact on sleep, on mental health, on physical health, both for our patients and ourselves. So If you found this video helpful, if you found this information helpful, go ahead and click the like button. That's going to help this video get seen by more people on YouTube. So please like and subscribe so we can feed that YouTube algorithm and get the message out. For anyone who wants more resources, consciousplanet.org, safesoil.org. And then if you could use a sleep resource, you can also look in the links below underneath this video. So thank you, Dr. Ashwin, for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Nishi. Thanks for having me.